Hi everyone, it's Darlene. Welcome back for another video. Today's card uses the Balloon and Patterns Stencil set by Simon Says Stamp. I'm also using the Scripty Sayings by Lawn Fawn. It's got some really cute little curls in it. And I'm going to show you what comes in this stencil pack. So there are 4 balloon stencils and then some patterns that you can use to stencil over those shapes. And I'll show you how that works. Before I get started, I'm going to create my masks. So all I'm going to do is outline inside the stencil with my pencil on a Post-it. You can use masking tape. And I'm going to use the large one and then the medium one and 2 small ones. And hopefully if all works out, that's exactly what I'll need for masks. And so once I'm done creating those outlines, I'm just going to take a scissor and cut them out. And then I'll put them off to the side on my craft mat so they're ready to go when I need them. Now I'm going to take this first medium-sized balloon and put it in the center of some Neenah cardstock. And I'm going to adhere this with some surgical tape. And you can see I'm going to kind of put the tape on my shirt here. It's just a fleece shirt to get rid of some of the stickiness so I don't have any issues with it sticking to my cardstock. I know sometimes that can be an issue with this tape. So I'm doing this each time throughout the video, and it turns out that I did not have any issues at all with the tape sticking. So I'm going to need to also cover up the other balloon, so I don't want to, get inside that hole by accident. So I'm going to make sure I have all my surrounding area covered with the surgical tape. My first balloon is going to be 2 shades of green. I have Cracked Pistachio and Evergreen Bough. I'm going to start with my light color, and I'm using a sponge dauber. And I'm just going to be very careful. So Distress ink stays wet for a long period of time. So you can easily get ink smudges, like you get some on your finger and then you touch the cardstock. So I had a lot of issues with that the first time I created this card. So I'm just going to be really careful about making sure I stay inside the stencil and don't get any or too much on my fingers. So I'm just putting a light layer of color here of the pistachio. And you can see sometimes I'll kind of twist it and pull it up, like here right there. And that really helps me to kind of get a good layer of color without risking, lifting up the stencil or getting underneath the surgical tape and peeling it off or anything like that. Okay, so once I get the light color in, now it's time to do the dark color, and I'm using Evergreen Bough. It's just going to be a very light edge that I'm going to cover with this using the sponge dauber. So I want this to be kind of an appearance of a shadow. So I'm just going to go around the left side, around the right side, and I'm going to put a little extra on the bottom and on the left side. So it looks like my light reflection is my light is coming from the back right. Once I'm done with this Evergreen Bough along the edges, I'm going to take my striped stencil, place it right over here on top of the balloon, and I'm going to take that same Evergreen Bough and I'm going to just kind of move along the same direction of the stencil so that it doesn't get underneath the stencil. So I'm being really careful about this. You could adhere this down, but I'm just holding it down with my fingers since it's just going to take me a few seconds to do this. And I'm not going to put too much ink because I want it to be just sort of a faded stripe. So I'm going to peel this away and lift it up so you can see you get a nice pretty stripe here. And it sort of fades to the edge since it's the same color as the edge. I'm going to mask over this balloon so that the next one appears that it's behind it. And I'm going to use the bigger balloon, and I'm going to go through the same process of taking my surgical tape, putting it on my shirt to get rid of the stick, and placing it down. I'm using new tape with each balloon that I'm stenciling because I don't want to get any extra ink like accidentally on my cardstock from there being ink left over from the previous balloon. Okay, so now I'm moving on with Picked Raspberry, and I'm just going to cover this whole thing. And my highlight is going to be Barn Door, and I'm using a different dauber. So I have a dauber for dark reds, and I have a dauber for light reds. I have a dauber for light greens, I have a dauber for dark greens, so I just kind of separate it that way. And I'm going to do the same thing I did earlier, which is just kind of do the edges. And then for this balloon, I'm going to use the heart stencil, so there'll be some hearts. And again, when I'm using the stencil, I'm using the same color that I did the edge with, which in this case is Barn Door. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of pressing down and twisting and lifting up my dauber on each one of these hearts because I'm just trying to be really careful. The stencil is kind of small, so I want to stay within the area of the balloon. So when I lift that up, you'll see how cute it looks. All right, now I'm going to move on. I'm going to cover that, and I'm going to work on a balloon behind this pink one. This one is going to be blue, and it's going to be the smaller of the 4 balloons. And this one is going to be broken china on the inside, so I'm going to speed through this. And whenever I hit the post-it, I want to make sure that I go from on post-it to off post-it. That way I don't damage my paper or get underneath it in any way. For the edges of the blue balloon, it's going to be chipped sapphire, so I'm going to quickly do the edges of that. The area that I'm inking is pretty small, so there were some balloons such as this one where I had to go back to the first color just because I had a little bit too much of the edge color and I wanted to make sure that I didn't have too much dark, so I added a little bit more of that broken china in the middle. Some of the balloons I'm going to leave blank without a pattern. I felt like a pattern on every balloon would be a little bit too much, so I left the balloon plain. For this balloon, I'm using squeezed lemonade and twisted citron. It's kind of a lemon and lime, and I really like the way these two colors go together. And I know, you could use a darker yellow, and that would look pretty too. I just thought it'd be interesting to have the green thrown in there. And I'm also going to leave this balloon blank, and I masked it so that I could do the next one, which is going to be orange colors. This is Carved Pumpkin. It's a new ink color that I just got. I really like this color a lot. It's a really pretty orange. And it goes well with the ripe persimmon, which is kind of like a dark reddish orange. So I'm going to use that around the edges, and I'm also going to leave this balloon blank. And then I'm going to move on to the final balloon, which is going to be medium size. I also had to ink up that orange one, and I'm going to use the same blue colors that I used on the other one, which is broken china and chipped sapphire. So you can see it's getting kind of hard to do. I've got two pieces of Post-its that don't have a lot of stick on them, and so I'm just kind of holding everything down to make sure that I don't get underneath any of those Post-its. So now I'm just doing the chipped sapphire along the edge, and I am going to do a stripe on this one. It's going to be in the opposite direction of the first one that I did, the green one. So I'm going to lay that on top. I'm just going to hold it really carefully, and I'm going to move my dauber kind of along the same direction as the stripes are, and just put a little bit in the middle. And so now it's time to take everything off and see what the results are. This is my favorite part. Now, after I looked at this, I thought, I think I need to do that blue on the other side with a stripe. It just seemed a little too empty. So I retaped everything, and I put the stripe pattern on top, and I put some chipped sapphire on there. And I think that this came out a lot better. So here's the final set of balloons. For the balloon strings, I'm using the string from the Balloon Builder set by Stampin' Up. You could just draw them yourself if you want to. And what I did was I did the highest one first using some Hero Hues black ink. And that was how long I was going to be able to make all of the strings. So then I put a Post-it at the bottom of that one. And I inked this up again. I'm going to kind of turn it different ways so it doesn't look like it's the same exact stamp piece of string. And I'm going to come down on all these balloons to the same length as I did that first one. Now when I'm doing this orange one in the back, I had to mask the yellow one in the front so that it looked like the string was coming from behind that balloon. And that is it for the balloon strings. Now the only thing I did, and I did this off camera, was to actually draw a line across the knot of the balloon, and I just did that with a black marker. And here's my sentiment with black. I decided to put it on top of the balloon strings just because I thought it would be different and interesting. And now I'm drawing an outline. I'm using my ruler. I'm not hand drawing this. This is the Stampin' Up! Black marker. I just felt like I wanted an outline in a single line. I haven't drawn lines in a long time. I used to do this on almost every card, but I thought it would go nicely with the balloon strings to kind of have a drawn outline on the edges. And then I'm going to take this panel and put some ATG tape runner on the back. And because I'm adhering it to a card base without a mat, I can just put it in the corner of my MISTI, line up the corner of this panel, and then everything will be lined up perfectly. I love when I'm able to do this. And that is the card for today. So kind of interesting way to create some balloons with some patterns using stencils. I hope you enjoy that, and I will see you next time. Thanks for watching.